All successful smaller guards have a lot to break down in their game, but Mike James is one of the craziest I've ever seen. Both from an athleticism standpoint and a skill standpoint, so to speak, he's one of the best to watch and break down for any shorter guard. So let's get right into it. So first off, his floater and runner game. And the first point I'll make is how he gets into these floaters before that shot even goes up into the air. So no matter how much traffic is around him, he's going to find a path for that ball to get up into the floater cleanly, even if this means bringing it up on his left or right side. So he's getting comfortable moving that ball around traffic up into the shot, which is huge. Also, he's really good at leaning back and creating a few extra inches of space this way. Something else that's really helpful for a shorter guard. And when you think about it, this actually helps the trajectory of the shot be more vertical or upwards anyways. And this is honestly the same thing on jumpers too. He's able to muster up enough power to fade backwards and still get enough on that shot. And I do want to touch on these short jumpers, which he uses a ton when he's around the paint with slower speeds. So a lot of the times think of this as a battle for first contact. He's trying to initiate it first, so he can then send them backwards with that contact and bounce out a few feet to raise up into the jumper. Plus, he doesn't need much time for this shot anyways, so this is definitely a go-to. It's also crazy how many different floater releases he can use, whether that's overhand, underhand, or even that running hook shot that everyone's seen. And this is great for when he's moving away from the basket, which is inherently going to happen when you're moving across the court. And a lot of this is honestly tough to break down. It's just crazy touch. But one big detail here is how he finishes the hook by rotating towards the basket as the ball is being released. From a mechanical standpoint, this just seems to make the shot much easier, so he doesn't have to go from fully over his head. He's essentially putting his shoulder in a much more comfortable position. Next, let's talk finishing. One big key I notice here is that he seems equally effective off of 1 and 2 feet. But of course, each has their benefits. For instance, 1 foot finishes are typically less controlled, although he has more control than most off of 1. He's actually pretty good at changing direction into the jump off of 1 leg, which is pretty impressive. Not to mention how much body control he has off of 1 foot around the rim, even coming in at high speeds. So he'll typically use that 1 foot jump strategy when he's moving with pace towards the bucket. This could be driving at higher speeds, jumping from further, or even dunking, especially coming in from those higher velocities. But if he wants to be crazy acrobatic or absorb contact, it seems like a 2 foot jump is ideal, primarily because you're much more centered off of 2 foot jumps. And what I mean by that is when you jump off one leg is extended, one is flexed. So you're less stable, you're not as centered. When you go off 2 feet, everything is much more balanced. Now let's bring it out to the perimeter a little bit. You'll see a lot of these really crazy separation moves, most of these off of misdirections. And what I like about a lot of these is how he uses his momentum to get into these. So what I mean by that is if he's going to his left, he's using that misdirection to kind of fake right, but continue going to that left to use that momentum. You'll also notice how much he elevates at times relative to his usual jumper, which requires an important quality, being absolutely amazing at switching his lift point. So notice how low this quote-unquote lift point is when he needs more range or needs to get it off quickly. It's right at his forehead level. But when he really elevates, he's releasing it higher, or even further back towards his ear to get more power and or avoid a defender's contest. Every time is going to be a little bit different. He's also great at releasing at different points in his jump. For example, here he's more on the way up, whereas here he's more on the way down or the top of his jump. And he's even great at adjusting how his legs move in midair to counterbalance himself. For example, his left foot is forward here, and on this one he's literally bringing up his feet off of the ground. And this just naturally comes with a ton of tough shots off the dribble and elevating on all of these. So this is just a perfect example of how the best players are the ones who are able to change up their technique shot to shot based on the demands of the game and still be successful. And then lastly, ball handling and attacking. First off, notice this forward skip that he uses to put pressure on the defense and gain some momentum into the acceleration. He's really carrying some speed into it and forcing them to make a decision. Now, this can be a shorter skip too. But regardless, this forward skip is a great way to get them moving backwards or laterally. He's also amazing at hanging the ball while continuing to move. So watch on all of these how he's able to continue moving while that ball kind of floats in his hand, which leaves so many options open. And when you have time to make decisions, stuff like this happens. Also, notice how good he is at countering in stride. In other words, reacting and switching hands without breaking that stride of the sprint. A lot of these look pretty unique, but it works so well for continuing that downhill momentum. Lastly, everyone's shifty in different ways, but he's way more active in most in how he translates his midsection. In other words, he's constantly shifting his shoulders multi-directionally to sell moves, and it helps that he frequently plays in this low, hinged, or leaning position where he can really throw his midsection around to shift a little bit. So obviously, as always, there are so many more details that we could go into, but I wanted to point some of these things out. Make sure to follow me on Instagram at byanymeansbasketball for a lot more like this, and also go check out the Ultimate Ball Handling program and other programs in our virtual academy. Go get to work.